Okay, so I am starting tonight off saying something I never thought I'd say. I agree with Candace Owens. I know. She criticizes the NAACP, the Black Lives Matter movement. She called COVID-19 a scam and even says that there's not a problem with white supremacy. But this week, the controversial Trump worshiper ignited a heated debate with the Daily Wire and her boss, Ben Shapiro, after she quoted Bible verses and said that no country is entitled to starting a genocide. Shapiro responded by telling Candace that she should quit her job. Wow, is Candace Owens having a moral redemption?
Greatest civil rights violation of our time, which is taking place right now, and that is transgenderism.
Never mind. Anyway, moving on. We are constantly told that the reason why women are not in positions of power or elected to office at the same rate as men is because women are too emotional. Well, here's a look at how our competent and masculine leaders handled their emotions this week. The best part of that clip is Senator Mullins challenging a Teamsters leader to a fight before being held back by America's favorite mitten model, Bernie Sanders. This man is a former MMA fighter challenging a man to a fight because he knew it wouldn't happen. Congress has clearly softened him up. I mean, here he is waiting for Bernie Sanders to come and rescue him on January 6th. Republican Representative George Santos announced this week that he will not be running for re-election in 2024 in order to star in the new TV series Ugly Little Liars. This is very convenient because the House Ethics Committee just released a report finding him guilty of fraud and exploitation. All this on top of lying about playing varsity volleyball in college, saying that his mother died during 9/11, fundraising for sick dogs and scamming donors, collecting unemployment benefits while working, lying to Congress, committing identity fraud, and spending campaign funds on designer clothing, Botox, and OnlyFans subscriptions. Now, the GOP has filed a resolution to expel him from Congress.
Well, Santos has already survived one vote to kick him out of Congress, but in light of this blistering report, lawmakers from both parties now planning to try again. New York Congressman Dan Goldman says he is prepared to reintroduce a motion to expel Santos right after the Thanksgiving break, meaning George Santos could be a former congressman by December.
But I just know that the OnlyFans part was the last straw. It's like, hey, we get a little fraud and corruption, but anal sex is where we draw the line. Speaking of which, a city in Tennessee quietly and quickly passed an ordinance that bans indecent exposure, lewd behavior, nudity, sexual conduct, and homosexuality because they're all synonymous. Clearly, they banned algebra too because the math ain't mathin', but don't worry, this was revoked as quickly as it was passed. Clearly, the local priests and politicians went on their Sniffies group chat and decided to shut it all down. Singer Cassie came forward this week accusing Sean Diddy Combs of rape, assault, trafficking, and so much more that there's actually a trigger warning on the first page of the lawsuit. Just a day later, both parties settled on an amicable agreement, which further led the internet to believe that Diddy is guilty on all charges. After news broke that Cassie settled, many were disappointed that she didn't bring this to trial. But y'all realize that Cassie wasn't telling us what happened, right? She was telling her lawyers, and now we just happen to know about it. Yes, it's an important story, and I'm glad that Cassie will get some justice, but we are not entitled to anyone reliving their trauma for our entertainment. Moving on, heralded as one of the most influential artists of all time and half of the biggest rap duo in history, Andre 3000 released his first album in 17 years this week. New Blue Sun, an 8-track jazz-filled no-lyrics journey that reflects on his personal growth in life. When Andre 3000 was asked about the switch up in genre, he said he'd much rather reflect on his reality because no one wants to hear him rap about getting a colonoscopy. But I personally think he missed out on a huge opportunity to appeal to men of a certain age. I mean, maybe if middle-aged men had more music to express themselves to, they wouldn't act like this.
Stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
That is this week's monologue. When we come back, I'll be joined by this week's panel to discuss this week's news and headlines. We'll be right back. Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Here's Why. I am joined by this week's panel from Surface Level. Tony Jerrell is here. And then next to him, we have Anthony, my best friend and co-host of By Latin Men, the podcast. And we are also joined by Valle, reporter and journalist for NBC. Welcome, everyone.
Alive.
We are going to get into some topics. First up, it's being reported that President Biden has brokered a 5-day pause between Israel and Hamas more than 40 days after the war, and I use that word very lightly, after the war started. The majority of Americans are against Biden's policies and want to see this war come to an end, and his poll numbers definitely reflect that. So do you think that Biden stepping in will get him some support back? And I'm asking you this as voters, clearly not like geopolitical experts. So do you think that him getting a pause, if this agreement does go through, will people think that that's...
Yeah, well, you're right. I'm not a politician, or I'm not a pundit. I'm not an expert at any of these matters, but I feel like damned if you do, damned if you don't. Like when it comes to this, I'm always like, no matter what he does, there's always going to be a level of criticism that comes with it. It really doesn't matter, in my opinion. I feel like people had their minds made up. It's really hard to, like, once people have their minds made up, they kind of like stick there. It takes a lot to really move people across that goalpost when they've already decided how they feel about you. So, you know, I'm glad that he's doing this, but I don't know that it's going to help either way. And when it comes to voters and people changing their minds. So.
Yeah, I think like even that too, like the voting aspect. I'm thinking, and I want to talk like a voter, right? I want to kind of push the journalism to the corner and what I report on. And I think from the outside, I think every single time we see them make a move, especially during this time, during this conflict and with the elections approaching, it's so critical because everyone's watching, right? There's I think a larger magnifying glass on top of like the administration right now with every single thing. And now we're just seeing it more on the international scale. Like, what are you doing with this? But I think now any move that the Biden administration makes, everyone's going to draw their opinions and be like, wait, hold on. You know, some might forget, voters might forget down the line next, you know, when November comes in 2024, and some might be taking critical notes right now because they represent two large communities, and we're seeing a lot of those communities just magnified more in the press than ever.
Right, like, and you said a 5-day pause, right? So I'm sure for a lot of people, they're like, oh, 5 days, like, they're going to say that's nothing, you know, in the grand scheme of things. So that's why I don't think that it really is going to change hearts and minds.
For me, I think 2016 and 2020 showed us that the polls don't mean anything. And polls a year out don't reflect anything on Biden. And I don't think that a problem that isn't affecting us directly here is going to determine who's the next president. And when it's between Biden and Trump, Trump will handle it way worse. So if you don't vote for Biden because of the Gaza and Hamas and Israel situation, you're going to elect Trump and then let him have free reign and let Israel do what they want, then that doesn't make any sense.
I think that a lot of people are so emotionally invested in this, as they should be, but are so emotionally invested in this situation that when they feel discouraged by Biden or by any politician when it comes to this matter, instead of thinking, well, I'm just not voting for Biden, they're just not voting at all. Yeah. And I don't think that they see it as electing Trump, even though that is exactly what would happen.
But that's the thing. Democrats always are passionate, right? Republicans are going to support whoever the nominee is. Even when it was Trump twice, they just all rally behind him no matter what they say about him before the election day. With Democrats, I think when it comes down to it and it is Biden and Trump, they're going to have to vote for Biden. Right. If you just choose not to vote, then you can't complain about another 4 years of Trump.
Moving on, people, of course, have, like I said, a lot of opinions about what's happening in the Middle East. And this week, I saw a video from an activist online who was basically pointing out that a ton of people have not said anything, including people like Beyonce, and said, you know, would you guys, if it came down to it, the way that everyone is now boycotting Starbucks, boycotting McDonald's, boycotting Target, and we're seeing all of this happen, would you guys hold that same energy for celebrities who are not using their power? So are those two things comparable, and should we expect celebrities to speak out about situations like this?
Yeah, I'm conflicted on whether or not people who have a platform, it's their obligation to speak up when it comes to political issues. Like, it's tricky because they signed up to do what they're passionate about. If it's you're a singer, you're an actor, whatever it is. And now because you've amassed a following and you have people who will listen to what you say, now if there's a political issue that's going on in the world, does that mean I'm obligated to use my platform? I don't know. I don't know that the answer is yes. And so for me, I don't expect anything from anyone. And when it comes to celebrities, I know it can be tricky. Like there's a lot of risk that comes with as soon as you say anything about any topic that's going on, you risk maybe brand deals or anything that you say being sort of put under a microscope and taken out of context. People will take a soundbite and they'll take that and run with it, and now it's a viral moment. And so I think they can put their money where their mouths are to support, whatever it is, whatever cause it is. But I don't know that they need to necessarily speak. Like, there's a lot that Beyonce or any celebrity that you drop into the conversation might do behind the scenes that people don't know about. So I'm more interested in like doing that work and figuring out what actually are they doing before I say that they're not doing anything because they're not speaking out publicly.
And I've said that before, and I shared that video online, and I said I'm not sharing this as a way to suggest that people should boycott Beyonce. Like, I personally do not care if she says something or doesn't, but I do think it's interesting the way that we are so quick to hold brands and systems and machines accountable, but we don't do that to people who are powerful. So she does have influence.
Well, let's look at Taylor Swift, though. Taylor Swift was quiet the whole 2016 election. And then when she starts handing out rainbow lights and saying love everyone at her shows, that's a stance in politicals and standing up for your gay fans. It's BS. Like, everything comes down to politics. And I think Black Lives Matter showed us that performative activism is not worth anything, because the same way all these brands were investing in DIE programs and investing in Black-owned businesses and, giving promotions to Black people, it only lasted 1 or 2 years. Now it's gone. We didn't even have any representation to this last Pride on any of these big brands. But this Palestine and Israel thing, again, when we're talking about politics, it is not something that is directly affecting us here. So I don't see a lot of artists or people with big platforms that are American needing to say anything or being affected by it. Because if that's the case, why aren't people like Kim Kardashian getting canceled for posting for her love for Israel or support for Israel?
I mean, she was dragged for it.
She was dragged for it, but her Skim line made how much money in a day for men's line?
Oh, of course.
Kylie just dropped her first clothing line and it sold out in one day. And she posted the same thing. Yep. All these comedians like
Amy Schumer
and Sarah Silverman. Sarah Silverman hosted a Daily Show after her post for Israel. So it's like, why would Beyonce have to stick out there and be like, oh, pray for Palestine, so that then she could get the backlash when white Jews aren't getting the backlash for sticking up for Israel? That doesn't make any sense.
There's a lot. There's I think even more than ever. You mentioned Black Lives Matter movement. I think that was obviously during the pandemic, right? We saw a lot of folks, I think even our own friends in our circles, if someone wasn't posting, it kind of rubbed all of us the wrong way.
Yeah.
Right. And I think now, I just feel like the social media realm has put such a big pressure. Like, okay, you just posted you're out here eating, but every day people are dying, and we understand that, right? Yeah. But we see that and we get so turned off by it because these are like our idols. These are the brands that we wear, right? And we say, oh, wow, like everything's dandy on your side of the world, right? Or on your page, but like you blink and you look to the other side and you see, it just...
Yeah.
Life's just going on.
Exactly. So it's like, how do you separate that, but also like have people... I think everyone has a different taste on how they expect people to move. And I think those expectations should just be put at one level, because when you do that, you're setting yourself up for disappointment.
Right, because I'm like, isn't that always going to be the case? There's always something going on somewhere. And so...
I think that it's okay to give celebrities, influencers, people with power, grace to learn things as we're learning them. This has been going on for nearly 5 decades, and a lot of us are just now becoming aware of it. Yeah. So I do think that if she were to say something, like, take it with a grain of salt. She probably doesn't know much more than we do. But also, I think that everything doesn't have to be a movement. Like, if you... that's my personal politic. Like, I personally feel like people in my life who've said absolutely nothing, I do look at them a weird way. But it's like, that is my personal politic. I don't have to go online and say, well, we should all start a movement and not go watch her movie. Go watch her movie.
Yeah.
If that's not the standard that you hold other people accountable to. But if you're doing it just because it's Beyonce, that's weird.
Exactly. That doesn't make any sense. And like, we just learned this last year with Ukraine. In the beginning of the Ukraine invasion, everybody was posting about it. Ukrainians, they've lost almost 500,000 people. And nobody's talking about that now. Now the new topic is Israel and Palestine.
Well,
so
because we've become desensitized because all people think about with Ukraine is that we're losing money.
And a year from now, no one's going to be talking about Palestine and Israel. They're not, because it doesn't affect us here. Black Lives Matter it only happened because of the pandemic. They couldn't stop people from actually sitting in front of the TV and watching the videos of George Floyd getting killed.
Well, yeah.
So you had to acknowledge it. And then Black celebrities lost nothing for speaking up. There was no back like a negative thing to it. Now again, celebrities don't have to speak up. Celebrities are brands, so they're not going to speak up. It's going to hurt their brand.
I think with every A-list celebrity, I'm just going to stick to Beyonce, but I do believe she watches. She sees what we're posting.
Oh, yeah.
Or whether it's her, someone's telling her, hey, so-and-so posted this. This is a viral thing. We see these montage of clips during her opening and tours and of the fans on YouTube, TikTok, getting the dances. And she knows that, right? So I know she has an ear to the ground on what's happening. And I just wonder what the conversations are like when they are met with these kind of topics. Like, do we say something? And even when it came down to her, like she said something during a show, said trans is beautiful, right? She read a sign that was like a viral thing. It's kind of like a nod to giving her position on LGBTQ rights and individuals. I know we're taking a shift here, but it just comes to show like she and among other celebrities try to nod to certain things, like Taylor with the love is, like you mentioned, the bracelets. And I was like, okay, but it's like a nod instead of like putting it out there. So I think they're working in ways to be vocal about certain things, but in their own form, their own artistry, creativity on stage, and when their platforms are most like, I guess, illuminated in those moments, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing about social media. Like, when we're talking about all of these movements, a lot of the reason for these movements being amplified is because of seeing the visuals.
Yeah.
Seeing the pictures, seeing the videos. If it weren't for that, like, Black Lives Matter was a huge deal because you saw that video of George Floyd. Same with what's going on with Palestine and Israel right now. The seeing of the videos really moves people in a different way. But now, like I think Kevin was saying, or maybe Anthony, it's like people are becoming desensitized to it. Yeah. So like after now we're seeing it, and no longer is it like the shock value anymore. It's like, oh my God, I have to stand up, I have to do it. Now you're seeing it all the time, and now it becomes people are just like less inclined to budge.
All right, moving on. So Univision, which is the largest Spanish-speaking network in America, is facing a ton of backlash for dropping Biden's ad campaigns during Trump's hour-long interview on November 7th. Okay. So this is being reported online. Univision is getting a bunch of backlash. People are boycotting the network. John Leguizamo, who I'm constantly telling to shut up online.
I'm confused.
Yes, so John Leguizamo went online and shared a clip. And John Leguizamo said, the Univision is now like a MAGA network, just like Fox. Like, they're banning Biden's ads. That is not true. An hour before Trump's exclusive interview with Univision, it's the first interview that he's given Univision since 2016. So right before that interview began airing, they shared that they had a new policy where they would not be airing opposition ads during a candidate's interviews.
Okay.
And so Biden had ads that they had already planned to air that they then took back. Yeah. So people are calling them out for this and saying that they are basically taking opportunities from the viewers to be educated and to, know more about the candidates. There is also a lot of backlash about the actual Trump interview because there were a lot of softball questions. Trump was talking about how much the executives like him. His son-in-law, Jared Kushner, is best friends with one of the executives, and they were all there at the interview. So this was clearly a softball question. They wanted the ratings, and that is very evident. beside that, which I think is, ridiculous, my question is this going to hurt Democrats, or should Democrats just be working harder for minority voters?
Hurt Democrats how? Having an interview for Trump?
It looking like Univision is sliding more.
No, I'm
Trump.
glad that they're calling them out for it, because first of all, Trump don't need any interviews on Telemundo, Television, nothing for Latinos. He has done nothing for Latinos. Why would they interview him? Why would they give him a platform? Like, did they not learn anything from 2016? Giving him free promo got him elected?
Well, I personally believe that this is just another reminder to the DNC and to Democrats in general. They need to work harder for minority voters. They constantly take Latino voters for granted, black voters for granted. And here's one statistic. So this year, according to a report by Cybersecurity for Democracy, federal candidates have spent an estimated $230,000 on Spanish language ads versus $19.9 million on English language ads. That is a fraction of the amount.
Right.
And it just goes to show that there is no effort. We are always just taken for granted. So I do think that if it lights a fire under Biden's ass to find other ways to reach Latino voters, that he should do that.
If I'm not mistaken, too, I think Univision reached out and they were planning an interview with Biden, right? I think more when this comes down to the interview itself, right? As a journalist and speaking ethically, credibility is a constant thing that we're like fighting every single day. As a journalist without a big network behind you and you just sitting there, you yourself and everything you put out there, right? So I think right now, I forget the journalist's name who had that interview with Trump for that Univision special. But for me, I was thinking about it and I'm like, damn, like, those kind of questions and letting him lead a certain conversation and maneuver things. I think when I do a sit down, if I'm doing an interview with someone, we're taking the editorial direction here, but how much are you allowing for that? Before they step into the interview, their PR teams are like really like, all right, what are we looking at? Like, what kind of questions?
Yeah.
You don't have to show that. You do not have to. If I'm interviewing you, I don't need to show you what we're going through. I can brief you on what we're doing, but it doesn't necessarily mean that what we're trying to grab from you, someone who's a former president, but also the gunning to run again. We're here to ask you those questions, those direct questions that affect the communities. We're not looking here to fluff a piece up.
The question that comes to me is like, how irresponsible is this when networks are landing these interviews that they know are going to be clickbait, they know people are going to watch. It's the smoke and mirrors, it's the pomp and circumstance, and it's hitting the bottom line. It's to bring in dollars because people are going to watch that. I feel like it's really irresponsible, and that's what it comes down to. Like, I think I question the integrity of networks that do these interviews, and it is the fluff, and they're not asking the right questions, and it's just about like, we need to get these ratings. We need people to watch so that we can bring in ad dollars. That to me is
and
just...
you letting Trump run the narrative. It's not an interview at this point. Right. It's another rally.
Exactly.
It really does become where if you're not, like, again, asking those questions, if I'm sitting across from you and we're trying to spread information into a certain community, Univision, I think Trump, they've had a relationship past almost decade now, right? But I was reading on the Washington Post, Joaquin Blaya, the former president of Univision, was saying that he feels that he's worried actually that the network has lost or is stepping away from the founding mission, which essentially is for the Latino people, right? Getting that and to put someone and with the conversations that are so, conversations and comments that he's had that are super polarizing and that have affected the community, it kind of feels like a punch to the gut, like really, honestly, and dressing him a certain way, right?
I just honestly am not surprised. And I think that we forget what a good job the GOP does at targeting minority voters.
Oh, absolutely.
They're great at it. Like, the words communism and socialism, like, just repeating that over and over again, it works. Like, Florida went from being a purple state to being a fully red state. The Miami-Dade County is 70.8% Latino, and Trump got that entire vote. It was not even close.
To me, like, I feel like, are people drinking the Kool-Aid? I guess.
Right.
Like, I feel like, at what point does the onus come on the
really
people to not be so gullible, to actually do their homework. I think that people, if I'm so easily swayed by just taking in the information that someone's spewing versus actually going to understand, like,
Facts.
but
Find the facts.
But here's the thing: is they're getting the information from the people who are trying to get it to them. When you are not, when you are not reaching out to the people, they're only going to take what they're getting, and they're like, "Well, this must be it because I'm not hearing from the other guy. He's not showing up anywhere." So
I don't believe that's
I
the
do
case.
hope.
Yeah.
I don't believe that's the case. I mean, also Latino is not monolithic. Like in California, they have way more Latinos than Florida. It's not a red state. New York has way more Latinos than Florida. So it's not about that. The thing is, they don't believe that they're being affected negatively by the party. Like Republican Party is taking care of them, obviously, if they keep getting their vote in Florida. But I just... Clearly, Univision was still on the right track because they didn't interview him for the 2020 election. So what changed now?
He refused. Univision has been bought out.
Yeah.
Univision is no longer the same owners as it was.
But he
while
refused
he was in
because
office.
at that time, the interview wasn't going to be a speech for him.
Of course.
It was going to be, you did this, you did this, you did this,
Yeah.
why? Now he should be getting questioned about his indictments. Things that he didn't do the first time. The wall, the immigration, the how he handled Hurricane Maria. But if you're not going to ask him that, of course, he's going to come back every time. So what, they're going to keep giving him interviews?
Yep.
So I'm glad that they are being held to the fire.
Same. All right. Well, moving on. Last topic. Cassie this week opened up about abuse that she says she suffered through with her ex Diddy throughout their 10-year-long relationship. Diddy settled the very next day after this lawsuit went public for an undisclosed amount. And people are saying that they are disappointed by the settlement and think that Diddy now got away with it. So should Cassie have continued pursuing this to trial?
I think, first of all, people need to understand the difference between a civil suit and a criminal suit. So jail time was never really on the table because this was a civil suit. I'm happy for her. Like, I'm glad that it settled and it went probably the way she wanted it to go. I think if she wanted to do even more harm, she could have. I think when she was going after the money the first time and it didn't happen, she now put it in writing. She filed a suit and she got her bag.
Yeah.
I just felt offended because she literally said, "It's me and you" to Diddy. Like, she left us out. Like, we ain't getting no more info. We just got the affidavit.
Listen, the tell-all book will never come out because I'm sure
There's
she
no
signed
movie,
she
there's no
signed an
book.
NDA for like now she's signed one of Diddy's NDAs.
I mean, but here's the thing, right?
Absolutely.
It's rumored and speculated, and I should say very, very speculated. It's just a rumor, but there is a rumor that Kim Porter, Diddy's ex, was writing a tell-all book around the time of her mysterious death. And, you know, people are saying Cassie probably wanted to write a book, and her affidavit is her book. Like, she gave us tons of detail.
That was a lot.
And I'm sure that there is so much more. But, like, the affidavit on the first page has a trigger warning on it because it's so detailed and so gruesome. So, you know, she did get to tell her story. But, you know, people are saying that now Diddy basically got away with it because they wanted to know more. They wanted him to have to go to trial.
People are saying he got away with it because people want to be nosy. And but I'm just like,
but my question,
we know.
Yeah.
I don't think it's only people, though. I think it's just Diddy has had this following him for years because he has wronged so many people. So it's not just about the public. It's also the artists and people that he has abused.
Yeah,
and
there are
they
a lot
haven't
of,
gotten any compensation.
There are a lot of people also who say that Cassie was kind of like lighting a torch and letting it be known that it is possible to take him down. And that by settling so quickly, she sort of chopped everyone at the legs who was thinking of coming forward.
Or did she set a precedence? Because it's now like, if I go after Diddy, he's just going to pay me.
Well, because now I don't know.
But I don't think everybody
true.
just wants the money. I think people want to take him down, like the way they wanted to take down R. Kelly, Bill Cosby.
So So then maybe Cassie did not want to take him down.
I don't even think that she didn't want to take him down. I think as a victim of domestic violence, she probably was like, she has to be convinced to do this because she waited till the day before the law expired. That's one.
Oh, really?
Yes.
So
she didn't
the
file.
the Adult Survivors Act was a law in the state of New York that extended your ability to file a civil lawsuit if the statute of limitations to press charges against someone for domestic abuse or sexual assault had already passed.
Yeah.
And the law was actually expiring on Friday, and she filed on Thursday.
Wow, that's
news to me
interesting.
too.
Yeah.
That's news
I think
to me.
a lot of people don't know that.
So her lawyers,
I didn't know
lawyers
that.
said that she had been thinking about without filing for a long time. And that they pressured her because they were like, after this, you won't be able to. Right. And there's no public way to actually get this story out there.
And you can't hold them accountable.
Yeah.
Wow.
Now, this is the same law that Eugene Carroll got Trump on about the rape and stuff. So again, she must have had been coached and finally got the courage to go public with it. But I think once it went crazy that Thursday, maybe she didn't want to relive this again. Like, she's a wife, she has kids now. Maybe she proved the point. Like, I'm not lying. This happened to me. I said in the affidavit, I got evidence to prove it.
Yeah.
And Diddy's not going to pay you off unless you do have evidence. If not, he would have said, file for dismissal.
I think Cassie, I guess in a way, reclaiming her power, right? Like, when you're dealing with again, another like A-list celebrity, someone who's so well known, someone whose reputation has been tested a few times, right? There are several rumors on several things, but what kind of like, I don't know what I was going through this week when I got the news, but I was like, I was not surprised.
No.
I was not surprised. And I was like, what? Like, what the hell is going on? But then I started reading through, and exactly what you said, it is literally like an outline of a book that was supposed to be coming out.
Chapters.
But how quickly that, this was settled shows me a lot. It should show everyone that there was an open communication, and it was strategic. This is a statement here. Just so we're clear, a decision to settle a lawsuit, this is from the lawyer, especially in 2023, is in no way an admission of wrongdoing. Mr. Combs' decision to settle the lawsuit does not in any way undermine his flat-out denial of the claims. He is happy that they got to a mutual settlement and wishes Miss Ventura the best.
In the court of public opinion, if this dragged out longer than it has, he would have probably been ruined.
Affected. Yeah.
So settling it this quickly means that in a couple weeks we won't be talking about this.
You think
anymore.
the team saw
here's the thing, right? Even a couple weeks ago, he was on the Jimmy Kimmel show when Jimmy Kimmel asked him a story about someone who, an ex-security guard of Diddy's, who alleged that Diddy actually smacked Will Smith a couple years back, and that the security guard was not coming forward with his own stories of things that he's witnessed Diddy do. And Diddy looked furious in that interview. And then he checked himself because he realized he was in public and he couldn't do anything. But there are so many stories about Diddy just in this, and stories that are being corroborated. Like, one of Diddy's artists says that he forced Cassie to shave her head after he saw a model with a half-shaved head, and he forced her to do it the very next day. People are saying that they've noticed that Carisha, Young Miami, only wears white nails around Diddy, and in her affidavit, Cassie said that he forced her to wear white nails every day because he liked the contrast of her white nails on his black skin. And there's a story that he allegedly had Kid Cudi's car blown up, and Kid Cudi's team, what's the word I'm looking for, corroborated that story.
And he was listed as a witness.
Yeah, there's a story that he allegedly had Kanye West's house burglarized. So all of these things connected to just this one scenario. How does the public hold, if everyone is so desperate to genuinely hold him accountable, how do people hold him accountable?
Well, I'll start by saying this. Who I miss most in this time is Wendy Williams. I would have lived. This would have been like TV gold, ratings gold. Like, this is the type of stuff that I loved Wendy for, and so I wish she was around to dip it and do it.
If Wendy had that story for one day, it wouldn't even be a point to settle it because it's done. It's gonna be every day. She would have did a whole show about it. Went into every detail, page by page.
Monday's show would have been like, so the settlement was, let's talk. She would have walked over to the recorder. How you doing, baby?
Even if it got settled, she would have still did a special.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
She would have.
But when it comes to holding like Diddy accountable, I think he has a lot of power. This man,
yes, he does.
And so he's gonna have his day in the sun. I just don't know how, but I think continuing, like, people have to continue to speak out.
Do you think that Diddy's reputation will remain intact, or has this
been his reputation? He ain't never had a good one.
He's a bad boy, right?
I mean, well, look at it this way, right? He's nominated for a Grammy.
Yes.
Do you think there's any possibility that he wins?
Oh, no. He don't deserve a Grammy anyway, though.
I don't think there's a possibility that he wins.
I think that I've just learned to expect the unexpected with the Recording Academy.
Yeah.
With that year Jay-Z walked in, 7-0 for that. I just think I just never know where the Academy. Again, he has. We mentioned the power of how much power he has. There's a board there, and these are people you're connected to, shifting the narrative, helping that. And so again, with the accountability too, it's like, yeah, I can, we can hold him accountable on ourselves, right? But in that realm, in those industries, people are so fearful to move and say certain things because then that cuts their food away, that cuts their connections away. There's just so much, I guess, power wars here internally. So the Grammys. I think he might get one.
Absolutely not.
I think
Diddy
might.
and Grammy is not in the same sentence. And let's remember, he's still a black man. They're white. He's not winning a Grammy. If he had any chance, he just lost it with Cassie.
If Young Miami continues to have a public relationship with Diddy, do you think that her reputation will suffer?
That's her brand.
Child, what brand?
That's her brand. Is like
City girl. She don't care about what you're doing.
Messiness is like.
Well, the thing is,
all
right. So for me, I think that Young Miami. Well, this is getting very pop culture heavy. I think that Young Miami's. I think that Young Miami though has been very strategic in aligning herself with Diddy and moving away from the city girl narrative because she wants some form of legitimacy that she doesn't have access to without someone as powerful as Diddy, which is the same thing that we saw Kim Kardashian do. Oh, yeah. She went from being the reality sex tape star to being a person of legitimacy because of Kanye West, which is always funny that it's black men who lead these women to legitimacy and then they're often still shunned from those same rooms that they give women access to. But
Carisha will never be that.
But he is giving her a lot. He's given her access to places that she's never been to.
But because
the Met Gala, Venice Fashion Week, touring the world, a podcast that's winning awards that it doesn't deserve.
But he's buying those awards. What the hell is a BET Hip Hop Award?
It's
come on, nothing. Yeah, because he can buy that for her.
Do you think that black women will continue to support a woman who stands by an alleged abuser publicly?
Some will and some won't. Right.
I think that a lot of people will fall off.
I feel like I can't speak on what or how specifically how a black woman would feel and seeing another black woman in that space, right? Where again, those lack of resources will not be there if she decides to move away from that scene, right? Or the access to it. That comes again to the whole power of it. Okay, so let's say I do step away and I have my opinion.
If she were smart, she'd call him out now publicly.
Listen, how many black women still support Chris Brown? You know what I'm saying?
Right.
True. But I don't know. I just feel, I guess you are right. I just feel like people are going to be more in a hurry to hold a black woman accountable for a man's actions than to hold the man accountable for what he allegedly did.
But what exactly do you want her to say?
I'm just saying, I think that if she were smart and she ended, this is not a romantic relationship. They are not in love with each other. I think if she were smart,
it's a business relationship.
I think if she were smart, while the public is on Cassie's side, if she publicly distanced herself from him, she would earn a lot of respect for that.
She will have no career too. Because he is the bag. Again, they just dropped the album after she was on his album. His album did way better than City Girl. City Girl sold 8,000 in a week. She has no career, babe.
This is clearly becoming a Byline Men episode. All right, so that is all the time we have for this week's episode. Thank you guys so much for tuning into another episode of Here's Why. I will see you here next week. Take care. Love you. Bye.